It's also part liaison with other armed services. Top brass from the Army and Air Force have been involved, along with the rising young stars from the staff colleges. And with us on the very latest stretched Type 42 destroyer, HMS Manchester, were naval attachés from countries as far away as India and Ecuador. The Russians weren't invited to the show, but they came anyway, in a trawler strung with more aerials than they need to listen to Radio Moscow. All good shows go with a bang. So when the Russian spy ship was sufficiently far out of range, the Manchester's 4.5-inch gun opened up and lobbed a few rounds at the horizon, about 14 miles away. The flash protection issued was nothing new to the naval attachés, but it brought out the schoolboy in them once their gold braid was covered. Then the 20 and 30mm anti-aircraft guns loosed off tracer at a target flare, rattling the eardrums even inside a pair of air defenders. The Sea Dart missiles weren't fired, but as part of the razzmatazz we were given a demonstration of razzing. Replenishment at sea, or RAS for short, is the precarious means of getting supplies from the Royal Fleet auxiliaries, in this case resource, onto the fighting ships. Swinging a Sea Dart missile across the gap in an oversized cigar box as the two vessels line up at a steady 16 knots is no easy task whether you're on the deck or on the bridge. The Sea Darts are for knocking out aircraft, like the Phantoms, which flew 600 miles from Lucas in Scotland to launch a mock attack. Had it been for real, we were assured, they'd have been detected over Newcastle. The radar missile guidance system would have locked onto them over the Midlands, and they'd have been destroyed somewhere over Reading. A flight of 4 Harriers from Illustrious was sent up to harry them away, and then the Harriers themselves showed the accuracy of their cannon fire against a splash target. The noise of their gunfire reaching us several seconds after they roared away just below the speed of sound. Illustrious is also the base for anti-submarine activities, including sonar-carrying Sea King helicopters seeking out Ocelot, a conventionally powered submarine also playing its part in the display. She was allowed to slip away before they dropped a depth charge, in this case an obsolete design. The very latest type isn't for showing off while the Russians are still in range.
Forward ahead, both engines.
And so the day ended as it started, with a bang. And what had been a stimulating day out for the visitors had also been a thorough workout for the ship's systems and their crews.
Approached within 13 miles of the Berwickshire coast to play cat and mouse with a NATO naval exercise. Alan Mackay reports on this close encounter with the destroyer HMS Manchester.
As the first Russian spy ship arrived to snoop on Royal Navy manoeuvres, even a helicopter winchman felt he had to do his own surveillance. And at the bridge of the destroyer Manchester, the commander's anger was building up.
He turned in front of us deliberately, and he's now crossed slowly in front of us from one side to the other and slowed down. And it is interesting to see whether he will stay where he is or whether he will allow us to go through. But under the rule of the road, I have a right to carry on as I am, and it is up to him to keep out of my way.
But the Russian would not give way, and it took a noisy blast from Manchester to remind them of that international rule of the road. Cat and mouse tactics are familiar now to the Royal Navy when expensive firepower is on display. This joint maritime exercise brings together 30 warships and support vessels, British numbers augmented by NATO's Atlantic Fleet, themselves heading for a North Sea exercise. But it was the Russian attempt to foul up the delicate ammunition exchange which had angered Manchester's commander the most. It's one of many joint manoeuvres designed to test the response to an enemy attack. The Russians, too, will be able to view air defense operations, a major role for the aircraft to pull moving targets around the sky. Royal Navy commanders described the Soviet airstrike power as horrific in its strength. So if it was ever necessary, how effective would their response be?
This ship is equipped to deal both with the manned bomber and with the missile. And if today had been a missile raid, we like to think that we would have detected them in time to have been able to have certainly shot some of them down with our Sea Dart missile system.
It's 8 o'clock in the evening and the men of Manchester are still at work, despite the fact that they were up at 7 o'clock this morning to leave port. These exercises are not the most popular activity in the Navy, but the men are committed. Manchester is away from home for 300 days a year. Even in World War II, destroyers steamed only for 150 days. So life in the Navy is changing.
The old days when you had a nice steady commission for 2 years, 2.5 years, with stacks of manpower, was a real dream compared to the battles that we have at the moment. With successive defence reviews, this has been cut down as more and more attention is put on to keeping the teeth going and cutting back the tail. But very regrettably, the cutting back of the tail for the sailor means that he spends less time ashore. And I'm noticing the effects of that on board this ship.
So even on operations, today's naval commander finds time to fire a shot across the bows of the Ministry of Defence, as well as at moving targets.